You have the right to change your mind, to change your perspective, to change your priorities, to completely change your life if you want to. I have recorded this video 3 times because I wasn't super clear on what my message was, but it just hit me this morning that this is what I'm trying to say. This video is inspired by my birthday. I just turned 47 years old, and I was thinking about a birthday 13 years ago. I turned 34 and I wrote a blog post. And the title of the blog post was 34 Divorced, Single, and Childless. And my point in making that the title was to, of course, draw people in, but then share that my life was not defined by those things, and I didn't find any of them to be depressing. And I was able to share how my vision for my life that I had when I was a young girl ended up being completely different. My life ended up looking completely different than I thought it would be in my mid-30s, and that all of that was fine because I had a great life and I was doing all these cool and interesting things that I could never have imagined when I was a young girl. And that there's a danger in holding on too tightly to a specific vision or a specific idea of what your life is supposed to look like or be like or feel like, and that it's important to examine periodically where you're at now, and does it align with where you want to be now versus where you thought you wanted to be or thought you needed to be. So now, at age 47, I find myself reflecting on that again and looking at my life as it is now and examining how things are going, what's going well, what do I love, what feels great, what do I still want to create or bring into my life. And I was thinking about that blog post and the title of it and my life at that time and how different, again, my life is now than it was then. So, of course, I'm still divorced because once you're divorced, that circumstance of your life doesn't go away. But it was so long ago that it doesn't feel like something I really identify with at all anymore. It's not a part of my life that I think about with any kind of regularity, and I never described myself as a divorced person. But when I was fresh out of my divorce, that seemed like a really defining moment in my life. So that's definitely a shift that has happened. No, I am not single anymore. I am happily engaged to be married to my partner, who I've been with for 6 years. And that has also come with a huge shift in mindset, a few shifts, in fact, because I reached a point in my life where I thought marriage was definitely not for me. It was not something that I wanted to pursue. It wasn't even something that I really believed in, even just long-term partnerships in general. And then I met my current partner, and our relationship has continued to grow and flourish and change over the course of our relationship for the better. And that is a new experience for me. My past relationships, there was always this decline over time. And I thought that was just the nature of reality. So why put yourself through that? Until I experienced the complete opposite. And it's been such a delight. And I changed my mind, and I'm really excited to get married and to embrace this new phase of my life. So that's a change. Childless, I'm still childless. And when I wrote that blog post in my mid-30s, even though I was childless at the time, and even though at that time I had thought I would definitely have kids by then, I still thought that that would be part of my life at some point. I was still quite young then. It seemed like a pretty strong possibility, and it was something that I wanted. And then once I turned 40, that changed. And that required a lot of self reflection and personal examination, and even talking to a lot of women who hadn't had kids, who'd chosen not to have kids, who always knew they didn't want to have kids, to really find my own truth amidst all of that, what was true for me in that moment. And the truth was that I no longer wanted that. It was something that I wanted when I was younger for a multitude of reasons. It didn't happen. And then I changed how I felt about it. And I really embraced where I was in my life at that time. And I couldn't see where kids would fit in with that. And so that became something that I just released. And I can honestly say that I'm really happy about that. Not to say that it wouldn't have been wonderful to have a child, but I'm perfectly happy not having a child. For the past 9 years, I've had a Chihuahua who I love and adore, and she is part of my family. And I love being a dog mom, and I find that very fulfilling and satisfying. And I find my whole life to be so full and full of so many wonderful, deep, incredible relationships. I do not feel like something is missing in that respect. So that is another big shift and a big change in my mindset that's happened over the course of my life. Other things, when I look back at that time of my life, when I wrote that blog post, are so different. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I felt like I was a city girl for life. I felt like I always needed to live close to the ocean. And now I live in a small town in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And this is my favorite place that I have ever lived in my life. And I've lived in a lot of different places. So that's a huge shift that's happened for me. I was a yoga teacher and a Thai massage therapist. I was self-employed. I thought that would be my reality forever, and it wasn't. I reached a point in my life where I felt like I really wanted employment to create stability, to stabilize my finances, to bring in more financial abundance. And I did, and that turned out to be hugely life-changing. I'm a homeowner now. I have a retirement account. I have such a better understanding of what it means to be financially stable and financially strong. And so if and when I do embark on self-employment again at some point in my future, I have a different understanding of what that looks like to be sustainable and abundant and fulfilling. So I am super grateful for this period of time in my life of employment. All of those things have been big shifts in my life. And the reason that I'm sharing all that with you is because I think it's so important to take these moments of pause and to take stock of where you're at in your life and really think about what were some of the beliefs that you may have had at some point in the past that are no longer relevant to you now, that you can let go of? Where have you changed? Where have your priorities changed? And for me, there was a certain point in my life where I looked around, I felt pretty good about where things were at, but I was also aware that there was something very fundamental to me that felt missing. And that was my art practice. That was this fundamental part of who I am that I had tried to let go of. I had tried to deprioritize because I felt like it wasn't important enough, or I didn't have space for it, or maybe I wasn't talented enough, or whatever the case may be. But none of those things were true. And like with all the shifts and changes that I shared, I spent time really considering what was true for me. And what was true for me is that I'm an artist, and having an art practice is an incredibly important aspect of who I am and how I feel fulfilled. And whether or not I turn that into a profession or a business or whatever doesn't matter, because it's the act of creating that brings me joy. It's the act of creating that brings me fulfillment. And so I brought that practice back in, but that had to come with a reckoning and a serious reflection and acknowledgement of what was true for me. So I invite you to do the same when you're doing this process of taking stock of your life, seeing where things are at. Number one, you definitely want to notice what is great about your life. What do you love? What is unexpected that is true for you that you couldn't have imagined 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that is true for you now? And then also honestly look at what is missing. What is absent from your life that used to bring you joy and fulfillment that you miss? Or what is something that you've been dying to learn or dying to try or dying to experience that you haven't pursued for whatever reason? And then how do you make space for that? How can you shift your priorities around so that that can become one of your priorities? Because our priorities are shifting constantly, and we need to make more conscious decisions about what our own priorities are so that people don't pile their own priorities onto us. One of my goals is growing this channel because I absolutely love this form of expression and communication. So my birthday wish is that you like this video, that you share it with someone who you think would really benefit from hearing this message, and that you become a subscriber. Thank you so much. I will see you next week.